Before we watched TV shows and movies on Narcos, and even before Pablo Escobar's rise to fame, there was one man who was the ultimate narco. He lived the narco life of greed, money, and power, but found a way to reclaim his life and use his astonishing experiences to empower others to live a life of hope, meaning, and redemption. Welcome to the Narco Mindset Podcast, where Dr. Jorge Valdes shares his journey through life before and after the Medellin drug cartel, from torture and multiple prison sentences to how he refocused his life onto a path of principles learned as a narco. It's time to share that raw truth with you, right here on the Narco Mindset Podcast, with your host, Dr. Jorge Valdes.
Today on the Narco Mindset Podcast, if that person is important to God and God is very, very important to you, then how will you treat that person? I am somebody that's going someplace and I don't want nothing to taint my character. It is impossible for us to make people like us. We need to protest for better education for our children. Instead of me crying about that I have to work 3 times as hard as anybody else, I just realized it made me better. Welcome to the Narco Mindset Podcast. My name is Dr. Jorge Valdes, and I am your host. We treat people according to how important they are to us or how important they are to someone that is important to us. So, for example, I get 100 emails a day, and it's hard to answer them all, with efficiency, even though I always have a motto that if someone took the time to email me or to write to me, I owe them the decency of writing back. So one of the first things that I do is I go through all those lists. I get rid of all the junk propaganda that you get on the email every day, no matter what you try to avoid. Those sites that somehow you seem to subscribe to that you did never subscribe to, always sending you something to buy because we live in a culture of I gotta have. So I go through and I erase all of those. I try to unsubscribe to the majority of them. And then I go down and I look at the list of the rest emails. Immediately, I answer those of the people that are very, very important to me. My family, my children, very, very close friends, and the closest business associates I have. Then I answer those that are important to somebody in my family or someone that is very close to me. And then down the road, I will answer the rest of them as time permits. And that's how life is. So in this message that I heard, it talks about that we go down the road and this car is about to just, throw us off the road or to really crash into us. And the guy seems to be like drunk or sleepy or whatever the case is. And our first intuition as a human being is to curse him out and to say, you idiot, blow the horn and all that. And in the message, it says, just at the moment that we're about to do that, we need to think about this. That person that we don't like, that person that could have cost our life, that person that we might despise, is someone that is very, very important to God. So again, here I am not trying to preach or anything like that, but the message goes, so if that person is important to God and God is very, very important to you, then how will you treat that person? What would you say to that person? And it goes with the dialogue that we're having today. We are so divided as a country. We're so divided as families over things that are really, truly going to pass. There's great division over the presidential election coming up. And the sad part about it, for the first time in history that I can remember, if you choose one side, immediately you are hated, despised, and given a whole series of names by the other side. So if you go with Biden, you're a socialist, you're a communist, you're this, you're that. If you go with Trump, you just don't give a damn about people, you hate immigrants, et cetera, et cetera. So the division goes in unbelievable size. But the truth of the matter is that even if Donald Trump is reelected president, in 4 years, he's going to be gone. If Joe Biden is elected president, in 8 years, he's going to be gone. And the cycle goes on and on. But what doesn't go on is the witness that we leave behind, the witness that we leave our children, the witness that we leave our grandchildren, the witness that we leave history. It's really interesting that forever and ever, I used to really worried about when I was a young man. I was so worried about my character. I was so worried about my the way that I behaved because I was so laser focused on becoming somebody. I had it all mapped out. I would graduate from University of Miami by the age of 20. I would take a year off to save some money. I would go on to law school, graduate from law school by 24, and be a millionaire by 30. I did nothing. I drew strict lines down the middle of what I would never, ever do. So I had this girlfriend, and sometimes we would go to a party, and, you're talking about the early 70s. Marijuana was a big thing among young people. And the minute I smelled it, I would tell her, Nettie, I got to go. We can't stay. And she's like, but it doesn't matter. We don't have to participate. I said, it doesn't matter. I am somebody that's going someplace, and I don't want nothing to taint my character. So I don't need to be around these people. And, and I behaved like that, and I was so strict, and people thought I was a nerd. And then I crossed the line. And when I crossed that line, it just went downhill so fast. And I became from a person that drew a line that I would never, ever break the law, that I didn't even have a traffic ticket, to someone that cared nothing about breaking the law. But that's how our life goes, right? We make decisions, and before we know it, they escalate to a point that of no return. And that is what's happening today with our witness. We start picking sides, and then it doesn't matter what the other side is. And then we forget that that person might have been a good friend of ours for 20 years. Now, we just don't like him anymore. Now we can just call him, he just doesn't give a damn or whatever. And we erase all the wonderful past that we had over a presidential candidate that's going to pass. Same thing with our family. Or we sit in front of the TV and we choose what side we want to listen to. So if we put on CNN, it's all anti-Trump. And if we put on Fox, it's all anti-Biden. And the views are so divided among both of them that somehow I believe the truth lies somewhere in the middle. So I decided as a family, we just would watch none of it. We will make up our own mind. I urge my children to think about the things that are important for them, not to judge a person by what politics or by the news are saying or by what popular consensus is. But what is important to them? Is other people important to them? God important to them? Is morality important to them? Is helping the poor? I try to help my children to define their personality and to define what they believe and what they don't believe. But at the end of the day, it's up to them. And then all I have to do is just sit back and accept it. And if I don't agree with it, I got to look at them and say, I don't agree with what you're saying, but I respect what you're saying. And I'm telling you this right now, I don't do that. I mean, I strive to do that, but I catch myself like shouting back immediately when they say something that is not right, or when I bring up a point and then they want to go ahead and debate it. So it's very, very interesting, the dynamics of a family. But, being a father is not easy. Unfortunately, we get all kinds of exams to fly an airplane, to drive a car, but there's no exam to be a father, which is actually to guide the greatest piece of human being that God ever created. So by the time we really have it figured out, we've made so many mistakes, and we just pray for God's mercy. But lately I've been thinking about, how do we do maybe a civility movement? How can we get past this hatred? If you are in favor of Black Lives Matter, you're crazy. If you're against them, you're crazy. So it doesn't matter what side you pick. There's no middle ground. There's no, okay, I believe in some of the things you believe in, I don't like other things. No, it's just like, I believe it or I hate it. So how do we start maybe a civility movement where we can contact a loved one or a friend that we've had for years? And if they're close by in the same town, invite them over to dinner. And let's say, look, let's have a dinner. Let's have a night where we can talk about what made our friendship great, or our upbringing if it's a family member. No politics at all. If I do the invite, I provide the food that my friend or my family member wants to eat and the wine. And if we live far away, then, perhaps we'll just have a virtual dinner, or we'll have a virtual night of wine and cheese. And if you really want to get exotic about it, you can send the wine and you can send the cheese. But at the end of the day, is to find points where we can go back to the time when we didn't have these divisions. Yeah, we had different opinions, but not this division to a point that is just chaotic right now. I look at the movement that's going on with this Black Lives Matter movement, and, I'm sure there's great people, and I'm sure there's really bad people in there. But when I see all the looting and I see all the destruction and all the rioting and I see people picking up arms, it makes me wonder, are we living in America anymore? What is going on? And I know that the oppression that the African American and people of color, listen, I came to America, I know what it is to be discriminated. I know what it is to be called a spick and to be called all kinds of names. And I could not understand as a 10-year-old why people were so mean. But those are people. And I realized as I was growing up, I never heard my father say anything negative about them. And I wonder, growing up, why would my father not protest? Why would my father let people call him a spick? My father was a millionaire, a very important person in Cuba. Yeah, right now he was a janitor at Jackson Byron's, but it didn't make him less of a man. But my father did not focus on what people were calling him, because I realized the older I was getting is, it is impossible for us to make people like us. People that don't like you are not going to ever like you. And that's the bottom line. So therefore, if people cannot like you, and if you can't make them like you, then what can you do? Well, you can do all you can do to better yourself and to become someone where you are respected. Sure, you might not be accepted, you might not be liked. I looked at it, and even going through my Ph.D. program, I remember I had to work 3 times as hard as anybody else to justify that I had the highest scholarship. But you know what it did? Instead of me crying about that I have to work 3 times as hard as anybody else, I just realized it made me better. Because the harder I worked, the better I became. So maybe perhaps somebody else's view of me helped me to become smarter, more focused. And at the end of the day, I ended up finishing faster than anybody in my class did. And we all had the same title, doctor. So I can't make those people like me. Perhaps I can make them respect me. But what will happen is, as we take up arms and as we destroy property and as we hurt other people, then you know what? All it does is justifies what people believe about us. For the last 25 years, way before this Black Lives Movement was popular, I was doing gang revivals. And when my book first came out, I did gang revivals in Chicago, and I did gang revivals among African American gangs and Latino gangs. And one of the things that I told them is, why are you being allowed to believe in a message that destroys yourself? How can blacks kill blacks? How can Latinos kill Latinos? We all carry the same blood. If anything, we should be fighting to better ourselves and to fight for the rights that God gave us as his special creation. It was interesting. I didn't see Latino killing whites, and I didn't see blacks killing whites. We're killing each other. So until we stop that, it doesn't matter, because if Latino lives matter, like when I hear people say Black Lives Matter, to me, I say Latino lives matter. Every life matters to God, right? Because I am a Christian. I make no beef about it. So if every life matters, and so why Latino lives matter? So I would tell the gangs, why are you killing each other? If you stand for Latino lives matter, why are you killing Latinos? And I say this to my black African American brothers. If you stand for Black Lives Matter, why are you allowing and not protesting about the thousands of lives taken by people of our same color? Why are we not protesting about the poor children that are dying in drive-by shootings? I did that in one of those events that I did in Chicago. I remember this lady coming up to me after I spoke, and she said, Dr. Valdes, I just wanted to die. I'm glad I came here today because I had decided I just wanted to die. You see, I'm a Christian woman, and all I ever ask God is to protect my children. But Dr. Valdes, I lost 3 of my young grandchildren to drive-by shootings. I looked at that woman and I wept. She said, I finally convinced myself that I was so unimportant to God that that's why he did not listen to me. And it's terrible. It's terrible when a mother has to bury a child. It's terrible. So no matter how much we are oppressed by the other, we can't control that. We can fight. We can protest peacefully like Martin Luther King did and demand rights that God gave us. But we can't control how they feel about us, and we can't control what the others do to us. But what we can control is what we do to each other. And unless our African American and our Latino leaders stand up and say enough is enough, we got to rebuild our cities. We cannot continue to allow these murders to go on. You know, I have been racially profiled in a lot of white cities, in a lot of white towns. Sure. I remember waiting for my car at the car wash and talking to my mother. And this older gentleman coming to me and say, "Speak English, you're in America." Well, I had to tell him that we spoke Spanish for 200 years before the English-speaking immigrants came to America. But the truth of the matter is, I've never felt unsafe in any of those communities. Sure, I know cops looked at me differently. Nothing I could do about that. I just had to make sure I didn't give them a reason to do something tragic. And I know sometimes we don't, and it still happens. But I'm going to tell you this. There's a lot of Latino communities that I am very, very concerned about ever going in. And that's the truth. And the same goes with a lot of African American communities. I know brothers, some of my closest friends that are African American will not go in certain parts of Atlanta. And the same goes with a lot of us Latinos will not go in certain parts of areas that are controlled by the Latino gangs in LA and other parts of California and different cities in America. And that's the truth. It hurts, but it's the truth. So we need to change our communities. And we need to allow these children growing up. And we need to fight and we need to protest. But we need to protest for what? We need to protest for better schools in our community. We need to protest for better education for our children. We need to protest for more funding so that those children that have the ability to go to college or a vocational training go instead of having to work to feed a family because the father left or the mother is on crack or drugs or any of the many ills that afflict our communities. That's what we need to protest. And we need to protest for the horrific of massive incarceration, those laws that were created to make sure that people of color are inventory and not human beings. But it's up to us. It's up to us what we do. We can buy into the frenzy. I promise you, this frenzy will pass. I'm 64 years old. I saw it. I thought back then in the 60s when I saw the Kent University killings, over the Vietnam War and all that, I thought, wow, this is going to bring change to America. It didn't. Nothing came. Then you saw the Black Panthers. You saw all kinds of movements. And they all come and they all go. Why? Because we don't look at the root of the problem. We got to start rebuilding our families. And we got to start at the bottom, rebuilding our communities. And those leaders of color, Latinos and African American, we have a responsibility that when we make it, we need to give back. What is the first thing that we do when we make it? We leave and we go live in those communities that we have always talked so bad about, the white communities. But the truth is that we abandon our community and don't ever look back. If we just take part of the money that we make in these great salaries, because we have a lot of people of wealth. Some of the highest paid athletes are athletes of color. Some of the highest paid entertainers are entertainers of color, Latino and African American. If we get back to the communities and we begin to rebuild those communities, then we're giving this next generation a chance. I don't care. 200 years can pass. We're never going to make people that do not like us. That's a reality. All the protest, all the burning, all the taking of arms ain't going to do absolutely nothing. As a matter of fact, the truth of the matter is that the more I see people militant out there with machine guns and all this because it's open carry laws, all I say to myself, you idiots, no matter what you think, trust me, you will be squelched. You weren't as powerful. You are not as powerful as we were in the drug cartels. And we were eliminated. As so will you. But what nobody can fight is an enemy or a person that doesn't fight back. See, no matter how much arms we raise, it'll get to a point that the government can send in all the troops. I mean, they do it overseas and they wipe out entire countries. Sure, public opinion here controls a lot of that. But the truth of the matter is when innocent people start dying, I mean, my God, we're out there destroying businesses that are only giving value to our communities. Then the government takes up our arms. But what no one can fight, it's like the bully. If a bully punches a kid and the kid doesn't punch back, and the bully punches him again, the kid doesn't punch back, and the bully punches him again, the kid doesn't punch back, eventually the bully moves on. I'm not saying that we need to be punch, take it. But I am a Christian, so I try to live by, figure out how I can turn that other cheek. But what I have seen is that peaceful protest moves people's hearts. Violent protest only reaffirms what people believe about us. If people think that we're animal and they turn the TV and see us looting and rioting and stealing, all they say is, see, we're right all along. There's nothing but a bunch of animals. But if people see us peacefully protest and love the other, it'll move hearts. God bless you. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you've enjoyed it, again, subscribe to our channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to our website at JorgeValdesPh.com, Valdes with an S. Join our community. You'll get a free copy of my latest book, Narco Mindset Freedom Edition. And stay tuned with all the things that we're doing. There's great stuff coming up. There's great things that I'm developing, great content. And again, all I'm doing, speaking from the bottom of my heart. You don't have to agree. It's free. Just enjoy it. And like I tell people, listen, if the shoe fits, wear it. If not, just get another pair of shoes. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. And we'll see you again next week on the Narco Mindset Podcast.
We've come to the conclusion of this episode of the Narco Mindset Podcast, but your path towards hope, meaning, and redemption continues. For more information and resources to help you on your path towards finding a life built on integrity, honor, and truth, head to JorgeValdesPh.com and join our community. We appreciate you joining us for this episode and look forward to helping you find your turning point right here on the Narco Mindset Podcast.